Hello and welcome to Study with Sudhir. You're watching SWS Geography Guru and we are now going to start with the chapter on waste management. Okay, again a chapter which has a lot of technical detail which you need to be mindful of. So we will do it in several parts in order to ensure that you are able to understand each and every concept of different ways of waste management very well. But more importantly, we will try and go beyond the textbook in the sense to give you a comprehensive understanding of why waste management is so important. And this is because, and listen to this carefully, as you grow, go 11th, 12th, college, higher education, waste management and environmental education today is one of the most lucrative professions that you could be in. And this could be environmental law. It could be, opening a firm. I read somewhere about a firm in India which has got a huge contract about to do waste management from a city in Russia. So in that sense, lucrative contracts are being given which are running into crores of rupees, right? So in that sense, environmental engineering is another very, very booming kind of a profession. So do not think of this only as one boring kind of a chapter. This can actually be the beginning of something very interesting and important from a career point of view. As I said, it could be environmental engineering, it could be environmental medicine, it could be environmental law, it could be NGO related work. The possibilities are immense because in today's day and age, garbage, waste disposal, all linked to different forms of climate change, everything, global warming, everything becomes interconnected. And that's why this chapter is important. This is your this is your introduction in that sense to the world of waste management. Okay, so I hope this is clear. So let's first understand what exactly is waste. And these are the pictures that you find mostly on the outskirts of the city where waste is dumped. We throw away our garbage, uske baad we don't bother. But this is where it's all dumped outside the city, right? The dump yards as it's called. So what exactly is waste? Now, waste is a general term which is used for any material that is discarded because it has either already served its purpose or now is no longer useful. Okay, so that's the technical definition of waste. So you need to remember these words. Discarded is a key word. Served its purpose, keyword, key phrase, please remember this. And it could also be a material which is generated at the end of an entire process and therefore it can be discarded. In this era, in today's day and age, more and more waste is being discarded. Now, waste can be of different kinds, mainly 5 kinds: industrial waste, domestic waste, electronic waste, e-waste, construction waste, and mining waste. Now, all of them lead to pollution, and which is a natural result of accumulation of waste. For instance, electronic waste, mobile phone, ho gaya khatam, we are no longer using it, we buy a new phone. What do we do with the old phone? Are we just throwing it away with the rest of the garbage, or are we disposing it off in the right manner, right? E-waste. Hospital waste is a major problem. Hospital waste, how we deal with hospital waste, which would largely come as part of the industrial waste, the hospital industry, the health industry. Otherwise, industrial waste, mining, where does the mining waste go? This is another important component. Construction, you construct a house, you break something, where does all that rubble go? Construction waste. Of course, domestic waste that you and I are pretty familiar with. So these are the 5 different kinds of waste that mankind essentially deals with. Let's now move to why is waste management needed? The need for waste management. Just look at the amount of waste that has been put out here. These may look good looking photographs, but they essentially also tell you the gravity of the situation. And as I keep saying, unfortunately, books do not use enough number of pictorial evidence to be able to tell the student what is really the situation. So the world will be saddled with waste. You would have, if you don't have a waste management plan and strategy in place, the world is only going to be having lot of dumping of huge quantities of waste because of the way we are kind of consuming. One mobile phone is out, we buy another mobile phone, throw it out. So we have a very use and throw kind of a lifestyle these days, right? The consumption pattern, as a result of which there is too much of waste. Then earlier solid waste were dumped on the city outskirts, as I said, or in water bodies. Unfortunately, now not possible, because environmentalists are saying that you can't dump your garbage into the nearby pond or the nearby river or the nearby lake, or you cannot put it on the city outskirts, right? Because I mean, people who are also living in that vicinity will always have, you know, the sight of these kind of scavengers and birds, the crows and eagles, everything flying around, which is not a pretty sight. And then of course it will give a bad smell, a foul smell, it will lead to diseases. So people who are living on the city outskirts also will not be very amused about it. And of course, if you dump it into the water bodies, you are polluting your entire water body system, right? So that is something which is, so you need abundant sites where you can take care of waste management, and that's what we are going to talk about in detail in the next few videos. Oceans are also getting polluted. What happens as a result? The fish, the marine life gets affected. You are also trying to consume the same fish which is going in the rivers or in the ocean. So if the fish is going to consume all that garbage that you are throwing into the water body, imagine all that is coming back into you. You understand the entire chain, jaisi karni vaisi bharni. What you sow, as you sow, so you reap. So the whole thing is coming back to the human being. So you need to be careful about that. Now, don't be shocked with this kind of a figure, right? This is a typical figure, or visual of garbage being taken. But the Lancet Science magazine, now Lancet, for those of you who may not be familiar, is the authentic and most credible source of any kind of scientific news. So if I'm a scientist and I have done something and I want it to get credibility, I will try to get it published by the Lancet magazine. Lancet mein aa gaya means it has credibility. So Lancet magazine said 17 lakh Indians died in 2019 due to air pollution. See, what I'm also trying to do here is that not just pick up data from your textbooks, because textbooks you can also read. My attempt is to give you the best possible sources, the most credible sources of data, so that you understand the gravity of the situation, understand the story behind the story which has been put in the textbook. So you realize what a major killer air pollution is, right? In fact, the world figure is that 1 in every 4 people are dying in the world today as a result of living or working in an unhealthy environment. Okay, so all this is something which you need to know in terms of data. This is purely for your understanding. This is a shot from Delhi. Just look at this. I don't need to explain to you anything. Just look at this picture. You have traffic going here. You see this side, there is full traffic going on the other side. You have buses. This probably is a school bus because it is yellow in color. I can see some school written here. This is public transport, auto rickshaws, people standing here. There are houses here. You see a whole number of cars. So it looks like a residential area. And look at the garbage which is disposed out there. Is this the kind of city that we would want to ever live in? That is the question I want to ask. Just look at this photograph. The photograph tells a story. You don't even need to look at the notes out here, right? So it ruins the beauty of the place completely. Imagine the people out here, they would all the time getting the foul smell probably of their own garbage. This garbage probably is dumped by the people who are living here. That's what it looks like, right? It leads to spread of diseases. It poisons the groundwater, because if there is monsoon season, rainy season, all this garbage water, dirty water will all seep into the groundwater source, right? It will give a foul smell and it will lead to air pollution, because someone will say, okay, let's dispose it off and start burning it. It will lead to air pollution, right? So those are the kind of problems that will arise as a result of this kind of garbage. Now, the need for waste management, therefore, becomes extremely important. How to do waste management, and we will we'll understand different ways of doing waste management, which is waste treatment, removal, recycling and reuse. Very important. Landfill disposal, sanitary landfills, the entire process of waste management, how waste is transported, how it is collected in the first place. dry waste, wet waste, etc. So proper disposal of waste becomes that much more important. So how can it be executed is important, right? You need to have proper disposal of waste. You need to have proper disposal of waste, which is collecting waste, segregating means separating the different kinds of waste. For instance, your electronic waste cannot be mixed with hospital waste, right? Your domestic waste cannot be mixed with construction waste, right? And transporting the waste material. How do you transport the waste material to wherever it has to be disposed of? Then the treatment of waste, another important aspect, because you need to process to reduce the harmful aspect. And this is another thing, whether it be in respect of water bodies or be in the recycling of plastic, etc. So the treatment of waste is equally important as far as the waste management strategy, plan and process is concerned. I hope till here you are with me, you have understood the basic larger picture as far as waste management is concerned. Now in the next videos, we will get into more specifics, okay, which would be a little technical, okay, but I really think it's important for all you 15-year-olds to understand it very well, okay. So I'll now see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Okay, now we are going to move on to methods of safe disposal of waste. Okay, and we start with segregation, then we move to dumping. We'll also talk about composting. Now, what is segregation? Segregation essentially means dividing the waste into different categories like dry waste and wet waste, or biodegradable or non-biodegradable. Biodegradable and non-biodegradable, or dry waste or wet waste, and this is key to effective waste management. Okay, so when you see these kind of heaps of garbage, you're essentially dividing it, and that will make the waste disposal strategy that much more effective and efficient. Okay, so segregation essentially means dividing waste into different categories. Because when waste is segregated, the reason for that is when waste is segregated, there is a reduction in the volume of the waste that reaches the final landfills. Landfills like the kind that I just showed you. So if you divide the waste, instead of 100 tons reaching a particular landfill, you will have only 600 tons reaching, because 400 tons can be sent elsewhere into different, depending on the kind of waste that it is. Okay, and it becomes easier to apply different forms of waste disposal depending on what kind of waste it is. What I mean to say is that, for instance, at the garbage disposal site like this, if you send old laptops, old keyboards, mobile phones, etc., also here, everything will be crushed. That's not the way to do efficient disposal of different kinds of waste. So you send the kind of e-waste that this landfill will take, and send other kinds of e-waste like hospital waste, construction waste, e-waste, etc., elsewhere. So the division of the segregation, dividing the waste into different categories, is an important component of the efficient disposal, safe disposal of waste. Now, what exactly is solid waste? You have food, you have paper, wood, electronic goods, plastic, metal scrap, glass, construction, rubble. Okay, so all these comes under rubber, construction waste, plastic, they all come under solid waste. What is liquid waste? Liquid waste includes sewage, drainage, chemicals, soapy water and old medicines. These come under liquid waste. So you need to know which are the components under solid waste and what are the components under liquid waste. Now, key to effective waste management is what we are talking about essentially out here, and we already spoke about reduction in the volume of waste. Now, waste can also be separately collected in different bins and made into biodegradable and non-biodegradable products. Now, what is biodegradable? Biodegradable is organic matter which can be broken down into CO2, carbon dioxide, water, methane by composting, about which we will read, and also any other process. And biodegradable includes essentially kitchen waste and paper. Okay, biodegradable includes paper and kitchen waste. Organic matter which can be broken down into CO2, water, methane by composting or any other process. Okay, this all comes under the collection of waste. The non-biodegradable is the recyclable kind of a waste, which includes plastic, which includes glass. 60% of plastic in India is recycled. Glass and metal. Okay, these are the non-biodegradable. You cannot use composting kind of method. Composting is, under the soil kind of thing. We'll read about that. I'll explain about it. Then you have the toxic kind of waste, which include paints, right? Chemicals which are produced, batteries, the pencil cells, etc. that you use, shoe polish, fertilizers. These are the toxic. Toxic means poisonous kind of non-biodegradable waste. Okay. Spray cans. So those are the kind of things that you need to be little careful about. Then you have the soiled kind of non-biodegradable waste, and that is a hospital waste. Bandage, blood soaked, injections, syringes, all those kind of hospital waste is something which you need to be very careful about. And this category has to be disposed of with a lot of care. Though I would say of late, even plastic, you have to be very careful about how it is disposed. But these two, because this is poisonous and this is hospital based, dealing with human blood, syringes, etc. Because if you see, one of the reasons for HIV, AIDS, etc. is when you use an old syringe, right? These days, when you go in for an injection, you always ask the nurse, or the paramedic, naya injection hai na? And so they should open it in front of you. Otherwise, in between, there was this major industry of, you'll pick up the used syringes, okay, and you will use that again for a fresh injection, and that can lead to HIV AIDS if it has been infected by an HIV AIDS person earlier, right? So that is something which you need to be very careful about. Even if it is a sealed cover, always check the seal before you go in for an injection at any dispensary or hospital. Okay. Now, dry waste, I'll come to this in a while. Dry waste is something which does not decay and can be sent to recycling plants. And this includes things like timber, furniture, aluminium foil, glass, crockery, steel utensils, Tetra packs in which you drink fruit juice and stuff like that. So that is all classified as dry waste. You can send it directly to the recycling plants, which is why you see, say for instance, many of the packaging material, why do you sell newspapers, etc., right? It can be recycled in many forms. Wet waste is something which is organic in nature and biodegradable. It is sent to landfills or to compost pits. Okay, so that is something which can be is biodegradable and it can be taken care of. Okay, I was just checking whether the last line is visible on camera or not. Okay, now these people, the rag pickers, the manual labor play a very important role. The role of rag pickers. I think in NCERT, CBSE 12th class English syllabus, there's a very interesting story on the role of the rag pickers. They make a living by sorting out the reusable and the recyclable items. They look at, okay, this can be recycled, this can be reused. So they sort it out themselves. They sell it, they make a living out of it. And they also help in the entire process of waste disposal in that manner. Okay, so that's what they do. They mainly deal with discarded solids. So that's as far as segregation is concerned. So segregation essentially means separation, and we have talked about biodegradable and non-biodegradable. We have dealt with dry waste and wet waste. I hope till now sab kuch samajh mein aa gaya. You are clear with this. Let's now move to why is dumping bad. The second process is dumping. And why is dumping considered not very good? Look at this. Now what they have done is, this is all waste which has been put out there and it has been set on fire. This entire mountain of waste has been set on fire. Now just imagine the amount of air pollution something like this is leading to. Is it good for our lungs to be inhaling all this kind of polluted air? Definitely not, right? So that's why dumping is bad. The whole idea of these presentations that we make here on SWS is to visually establish. You don't even need me to explain. You see this visual, you answer this question on your own. You will be able to understand what I'm talking about. And the whole idea is also to make chapters like this, which may be a little technical and some of you may find it boring, a little more interesting. Okay. Now, waste material is dumped in open lands away from city, and that makes it cheaper, but it also is an extremely unhygienic and unhealthy kind of a practice. It is a way of disposal of waste, but it's something which is definitely not desirable. Segregation is desirable, dumping is not desirable, right? It becomes a breeding ground. It's environment unfriendly. It is unhealthy, unhygienic. It becomes a breeding ground for mosquitoes and insects and rodents, etc. It gives a foul smell, and air and water pollution it leads to. Air we've already spoken to. If it rains, this entire mountain of waste will lead to the contamination of the ground water. Okay, so that is something, but it is cheaper than other solutions. Why? You take a truck, you dump the garbage out there, kaam khatam, mera kaam khatam, paisa mil gaya, nikal gaye. Okay, so it's cheaper than other solutions, but definitely not advisable, not something which is really preferable, okay, in the larger interest of environment and people like you and me. So one way of dealing with this, so if this is bad, how do we deal with it, right? And we deal with it by talking about landfills, sanitary landfills. I'll show you an exact photograph of a sanitary landfill a couple of slides later. But sanitary landfill, now this is a typical garbage truck that you would have seen in your town or city, dumping the garbage at the dumping yard. So one way of dealing with the issue has been to encourage sanitary landfills. Now these kind of sanitary landfills are modern engineering landfill where waste is allowed to decompose into biologically and chemically inert materials. This is the definition, technical definition. याद रखना इसके keywords को, please remember the keywords. So this is essentially how waste is allowed to decompose into biologically and chemically inert materials. The site is covered with earth to prevent insects and rodents from entering the landfill. So what happens is, what they do is that the waste is dumped and the site is covered with earth after that, to ensure that insects or rats, rodents means rats, do not enter the landfill. So you are putting the dump, instead of creating a mountain like the way we saw out here, what they are going to do is to create a land. I'll show you the photograph. Now this is a sanitary landfill. Okay. Now they have created this kind of a space. So they will put the waste and then they will cover it up. Okay. So then thereby you preventing any kind of rodents or insects, etc. So those kind of issues that you had with normal dumping will not arise with sanitary landfill dumping. So what happens inside a sanitary landfill? Inside the sanitary landfill, waste is subjected to bacterial decomposition because you have put it inside and it is decomposed as a result of bacteria working on it. They generate carbon dioxide, methane, ammonia, hydrogen, sulfide. This is used to generate power. Now that's an important part. It's almost done in 5 phases, which we'll talk about, which is again very technical, right? But it can be used to generate power. That can be one of the advantages of a sanitary landfill. Now what happens in the first phase is that aerobic bacteria. What is aerobic bacteria? Aerobic means in the presence of air. Okay, bacteria depletes the available oxygen and converts oxygen into carbon dioxide in the first phase. It's a 5-stage process as far as what happens inside sanitary landfill is concerned. So in the first stage, it converts oxygen into carbon dioxide and leads to increase in temperature. Stage 2 is that now it is in the anaerobic conditions, lead to hydrogen and carbon dioxide. The third one, it establishes the bacteria population and beginning of the production of methane. In the fourth stage, methanogenic activity becomes stabilized, and finally organic matter is depleted and the system returns to the aerobic state, that is in the presence of air. So this is an entire biochemical reaction that takes place inside the sanitary landfill, as a result of which it is subjected to bacterial decomposition of all the waste that is put there. Okay, so just remember these 5 stages and just break it down, make your own short notes from the notes that I have given, so that's easier for you to remember it. Now, what are the advantages that we spoke about a landfill? The advantages of a sanitary landfill over an open dump yard. Okay, The main advantage is that it's free from air pollution because there is no burning of waste. There is no burning of waste. Therefore, there will be no breeding of insects and it prevents spread of diseases. Free from fire hazards because the aag nahi lagegi, there will be no fire. So it's free from fire accidents and it minimizes environmental damage. It does not lead to air or water pollution. So the next question that arises after this is that what can we do in order to take care of the environment, and what do you need to take care as far as a landfill is concerned? How do we make it more environment friendly? The first step is that you should have a vegetative cover. You cover it and then you put vegetation on it. As a result of all that is there, it will also provide it with some kind of nutrients, right? And it will grow. So there will be some kind of a mini forest or whatever vegetation you can grow on it. You should plant local non-edible perennial plants. Non-edible means so that animals or any kind of cows grazing, cattle grazing, etc., they don't come and eat it. So it should be non-edible. Perennial means so they can grow through the year. Okay. And it should be a dense kind of a plantation. You know, it should not ideally not have roots more than 30 centimeters. These are some of the conditions that, you know, people who understand the subject have made. They should not have roots more than 30 centimeter because otherwise it will go too much into the waste. So it should just be on the surface, not more than 30 centimeters. They should be able to survive on low nutrient soil with minimum addition of nutrients, because you're not going to add nutrients to it, right? It's all going to survive on the waste that is there in the sanitary landfill, and the plantation should be dense to prevent soil erosion so that the soil does not erode after that. So what should be done to in order to ensure that what else should be done to take care of in a sanitary landfill? The landfill design is very important. What I just now showed you about that. You need to take the permission of the local administration and stuff like that. It ensures that, you know, there should be avoid contamination with groundwater. That's something very important. Seepage should be avoided. The soil preferably should be deep clay soil preferably, and soil testing should be done. 20 centimeter soil layer above waste to prevent foul smell and spread of diseases, right? So these are some of the things that you need to take care when you're talking about a sanitary landfill. Sanitary landfill, apart from segregation, a very good way to take care of good disposal of waste, not the open dump yard. So if ever you see an open dump yard, if you're going outside your town or city, you see an open dump yard and see the kind of waste disposal they are doing there. Go and ask, are you doing sanitary landfill or are you just dumping it here and putting it and setting fire to it? You need to understand. See, when you go out to the ground, you'll be able to see it and correlate what you have read in your textbook or listen to in these videos with the ground situation there. And I would strongly suggest any weekend do that as a practice. It will kind of, you know, open it. Just Google which is the nearest dumping ground near my city or town. Do that. It will be a useful exercise. Now let's move to the third part, which is composting. What is composting? Definition. It's an aerobic method. Aerobic, what I just now told you, in the presence of air. Method of decomposing solid waste. Okay. And this is how decomposing is done. Now, what happens? It's a process of decomposing essentially also so that you can use what you get as a result, this as a manure in order to replenish the soil fertility. The soil will become more fertile. You add as a manure to other soils also, it will help as a nutrient also. So, what happens is that the organic waste from different households, your household, my household, is taken and it is made to undergo decomposition in a manner that bacteria and other microorganisms break them down and produce a safe, clean and soil-like material, which is called compost. This is compost, right? Which is why it's called composting, right? So bacteria and other microorganisms work on all the waste that is put, the organic waste, and it results in compost. So it's an end product called compost is used as a manure to replenish soil fertility. So you see the vegetables being put out here, right? And then it is added with soil and it goes down. It has a way, and we will talk about that. There are different methods: Indore method, Coimbatore method, Bengaluru method. The first Indore method and Bengaluru method we'll talk about. So it is added like this, and that's how it leads to compost. So by doing compost, the size of the waste is reduced, it's turned into a soil ingredient, and pathogens are killed. In rural areas, layers of vegetable waste and night soils are alternated in a shallow zone, and that's indoor waste. But before I get into that, now you see, interestingly, as part of a 10th class project, what Tejaswini did was to do a project on composting, right? This was her, Tejaswini's project in geography was on composting. So what she did was, she traveled to a composting site on the outskirts of Hyderabad, and there she met the people, the farmers who are actually doing it. They're demonstrating how it is done. She took down notes, and that's why I say, if you're doing any project, it's very easy for you to just Google and just copy paste. That anyone can do. But the difference in a project between a 17 on 20 or a 16 on 20 and a 20 on 20 is when you do original work, put photographs, that gives you credibility that the student has taken the effort of going somewhere, understanding the topic from the people who are actually practicing it. Like, take their photographs, you speak to this farmer, the project quotes the farmers, etc. It just gives you much more authenticity, credibility, and the teacher will also get impressed that the student actually has taken the effort of traveling, understanding, researching, and putting out original material. So when you do these projects, a lot of students keep on asking, what project should we do? I always believe, because I've been a journalist, so I always believe in going to the ground and doing things on the ground, get original material. Otherwise, plagiarizing anybody, you see on YouTube, half the things are plagiarizing. I mean, there is a person out here who even copies headlines from another person's, my YouTube channel videos, and puts it as his own video. I mean, what are we even talking about? I mean, and then these people will talk big things about cheating. Be original. If you want to do meaningful projects, take that effort and in doing so. So this is what she did on composting. So I just thought this will be interesting for you people to be aware of. Now, there are two methods that we are going to talk about, the Indore method and the Bengaluru method of composting. In the Indore method, the layers of vegetable waste and night soils are alternated in a shallow hole, right? And this mixture is then turned for 3 months. They keep on changing it, churning it up and down, and to provide air to the mixture, so there is some kind of moisture, etc. So you keep mixing it. In the 4th month, the compost is left undisturbed. Okay, and after that, slowly you take it out and use it as manure. In the Bengaluru method, it's a more mechanical method of composting where the waste material is placed in layers above 1 meter deep, about 1 meter deep, and it is not turned. Unlike the Indore method, it is not turned, but it is decomposes completely in about 5 months. So for about 5 months, you leave it completely undisturbed. So these are the two different methods of composting that happen in the country. Okay. Now, what are the advantages that you need to know of composting? We have been talking a lot about composting, so by now you would have an idea about what exactly it manages to do. It enhances soil nutrients and water retention capacity of soils. Okay, point number 1, important keywords. It prevents plant diseases. It adds humus to the soil and rejuvenates the soil. Very important. It is very cost effective. You don't need to spend too much of money in doing composting. It checks soil erosion. It prevents pollution. It absorbs odor. There will be no foul smell and degrades volatile organic compounds. Produces biogas, a useful form of energy. This is important. This is very important. So when it is cost effective, you don't need to add too much of fertilizers, insecticides or water. And if it produces biogas, the anaerobic form of decomposition, it can be used to produce energy, and vermicomposting is a very useful and efficient method. So that brings us to the end of this particular video, right, in which we have spoken about the different ways of disposal of waste. Okay, I hope you have understood it now. Please go through the notes so that this particular part of this waste management chapter is absolutely clear. Tata, bye bye. Now, let's move on to the next part of the waste management chapter, which talks about reducing, reusing, and recycling of waste. The need to do this and the methods which are used in order to reduce, reuse, and recycle waste. And I've got some very interesting slides in this. Okay, it's going to be fun. See, the whole idea at SWS is to put out material, include material which makes it relatable to each one of you. You're able to relate. The whole idea is not to throw textbook jargon at all of you. Of course, we prepare you for the examination, but the whole idea is also to make learning educative. We're talking about education out here. We are not talking about just syllabus. Okay, there is life beyond syllabus. And generally, questions life में syllabus के बाहरी out of syllabus questions ही पूछे जाते हैं. Reduces need for new landfills and incinerators. Okay, now what are these 3 R's that we are talking about? Reduce, reuse, and recycle. The 3 R's. R. Yes, Rajamouli ki picture ki baat nahi kar raha hu main. Okay, now it keeps the goods and materials out of landfills and reduces the need for new landfills as well as incinerators. Now, incineration is the process of controlled high temperature. Please remember this definition just in case it is asked. Under high temperature, and it produces water and carbon dioxide. It involves basically burning of waste at a very high temperature. Even the electrical crematorium essentially is the same kind of process, and it generates ash, and that has an adverse impact on human health and environment. Okay, so that's why these are the 3 R's of waste management that you need to be aware of. So if you reduce the need for landfills, new landfills and incinerators, you will be doing good to the environment. It generates new business and employment opportunities. The entire, as I said in an earlier video, the whole waste management industry is extremely lucrative, right? You would be surprised at how much do agencies which deal with waste and garbage actually make in a year. Their annual income is huge, right? So don't think ye kachra hai to kachre ka kaam bekar hai. Decreases demand on natural resources, right? Because if you are able to conserve the environment better, the demand on natural resources will be less. It reduces the impact on agriculture and freshwater locations. Very important. Your water bodies will not be contaminated, and there will be lower frequency of natural disasters. Because why do tsunamis and floods and cyclones etc. come? Because you are playing around with the ecology and the environment of a particular area, right? Which is why you have this kind of, unseasonal rains. You have once in 100 years the highest rainfall that a city that would have ever got. It's essentially because we are all the time tampering with mother nature, right? So that is something very important. So if you are able to control our waste, we would be doing much better. So what are the methods? Oh, in fact, this is very interesting, and this takes off from the last point. Lower frequency of natural disasters, right? And reducing impact on freshwater locations, right? So this was Mumbai, May 2021, okay, after cyclone Taukte. This is all the waste that was thrown back by the sea on the coast of Mumbai, right? In May 2021, 62,010 kg of trash. 62,000 kg of trash was thrown back by the sea. Sea ने बोला, समुद्र ने बोला, भाड़ में जाओ, ये तुम्हारा कचरा है, तुम ही पकड़ो. And all the 62,000 kg of trash was thrown back on the coast of Mumbai by the Arabian Sea. You understand the messaging? Do you understand the messaging? When I said I will show you some interesting slides, this is the first one. It kind of tells you that Mother Nature is not going to be taking all this nonsense and trash that you throw into the water bodies, right? It will say, tum pakdo, ye tumhara kachra hai, ye tum hi nipto isse. You cannot dispose it by just throwing it into the sea. So this is all that came out in May 2021 after the cyclone. So when the cyclones etc. happen, this is what happens, and this has happened in other parts of the world also. Now, the methods of reducing waste. How do you reduce waste? You change the input material in industry. This is very important because the industrial sector, if it changes one of its components, which is leading to too much of waste, and starts using some other input material which reduces the quantity of waste, it can actually reduce the amount of waste that will be generated. Methods of reducing waste. Waste concentration. It's essentially the amount of liquid waste that can be reduced by using more scientific methods like evaporation, precipitation, and incineration. Okay, though incineration is not considered very environment friendly, right? But you can try to reduce it by using more scientific methods. Okay, then segregation of waste, which we have already spoken about in earlier videos. Non-hazardous, separated from, we have spoken about dry waste and wet waste. We spoke about biodegradable and non-biodegradable. Now another category can be hazardous and non-hazardous. Hazardous is something which is bad and harmful for the environment. Non-hazardous is something which is okay for the environment. So you treat the hazardous waste. The hazardous waste has to be treated before it is let out again, right? It's like, polluted water, usko recycle karke, this thing, what is done in many countries also, you kind of recycle the water and make it useful for, say, gardening or for, washing of vehicles, use the water in that kind of manner. Okay, so treating the hazardous waste of different kind, mainly coming from the industry. Now, what are the methods? Now, let's move to the second R. First R ho gaya, reducing. Now, let's go to reusing of waste. Methods of reusing waste. Now, what is this? People from Chandigarh, if you are from Chandigarh, you would be familiar with what this photograph depicts. This is the rock garden in Chandigarh. If you see this is entirely created from waste. This is the work of one person called Nekchand. I interviewed him many years ago when I was in the Economic Times. I did a profile on Nekchand. So Nekchand's rock garden in Chandigarh made entirely from urban waste. So all kinds of urban waste, broken cups, broken saucers, paper, plastic, whatever, different kinds of waste products are used to create this kind of lovely artifact. So that's how. Or you would see different people using car tires or truck tires to make sofas, seats to sit around, almost like garden seating area kind of thing, benches kind of thing. Tins are used for making stylish lamps, for instance, and rag pickers pick up a lot of this stuff which can be reused later. So the waste collector is another important kind of an element which can be used for different kind of thing, and all this reduces the burden. The reusing reduces the burden on the environment. The other, I'll show you one more example like this. Now these you see are bricks, but they're not the typical brick in red bricks. These are methods of reusing waste. So what they have done, the fly ash, now NTPC is National Thermal Power Corporation. NTPC is one of the major Navratna companies of the country. So the fly ash, now fly ash is something which is like the waste product from a power plant, okay, from a thermal power plant. So the fly ash from the NTPC power plants is used as a substitute for cement and make bricks. So you use them to produce these kind of bricks which can be used by the construction sector, by the real estate sector. It can also be, the fly ash can also be used for making roads. Okay, so you see waste, otherwise waste, you push it into the environment, it will lead to polluting the environment, land pollution. But you are using it in bricks and you are making use of the waste product. So these are the interesting, informative slides which I wanted to show you. Now, the third R is methods of recycling of waste. Reduce, reuse, and now we come to recycling of waste. Now, if you remember the agro-based industry, we spoke about bagasse from sugarcane, one of the byproducts. Now, that can be used for the manufacture of paper pulp. It reduces, if you make paper, that means that many trees you are saving. You are not cutting that many trees because you are using sugarcane bagasse byproduct to make paper pulp. Bagasse is also used to make packaging material for dairy products like milk, curd, etc., yogurt, etc. The paper industry recycles pieces of wood from the furniture industry. When you furniture industry mein wood ko you will keep on this thing, what do you do with all that chatta which is left behind? You can use that again for the paper industry, right? They also use, many people use discarded cloth pieces to make different kinds of, bags and stuff like that, right? So you can use different waste material which would otherwise be thrown as to you produce something else. Now, plastic is a big component. India generated 26,000 tons of plastic waste every day. That's the kind of plastic waste which is this thing. Now this is not from India, this photograph, I must say. So this is how a recycling plant where plastic bags etc. are being recycled essentially looks like. Now I will not go by statistics given in your textbooks. Your textbooks data is wrong. 60%. Now this is a data from the 2019-20 report of the Central Pollution Control Board, the national board which deals with pollution in the country. It says 60% of plastic waste is recycled in India. 60%. 40% is not recycled and it goes directly into the environment. So you can imagine how dangerous that is. And India generates 26,000. They had done in 2019-20, the CPCB, that is the Central Pollution Control Board, had done a survey on 60 cities in India, to see how much of plastic waste is generated. And because plastic is non-biodegradable, that makes it extremely risky. So you need to kind of recycle it, however, or you need to bury it in landfills. And the thin plastic is even more dangerous because plastic bag recycling also in a way is not absolutely ideal, because the melting of plastic, it breaks the polymer chains into smaller units, which is again considered dangerous to the environment. There are some road developers also who use waste plastic along with bitumen while they lay roads. Okay, that's also done. So there are different ways. Now let's come to the interesting part about the making of a road from plastic. Okay, now you see this road is made from waste plastic. You see this board. R. Vasudevan is considered the plastic man of India. His full name is Professor Rajagopalan Vasudevan. He is a professor of chemistry at the Tyagarajar College of Engineering in Madurai in Tamil Nadu in India, South India. He is referred to as the plastic man of India because he is the one who developed the technology to make a road using plastic waste. To make a road using plastic waste. You look at it, it looks just the same as a normal tar road. Now, he first implemented the use of plastic waste on a road constructed inside the College of Engineering in Madurai, and the college received a patent for it in 2006. Now, the waste items that can be used for laying the road for road construction includes plastic carry bags that you and I use, packaging, biscuit wrapper, chocolate wrappers, potato chip wrappers, plastic cups. Okay, the plastic waste is first shredded. I have described the entire process in the note, so you can go through it. It's a little technical. You can go through it, just put it down in point format so that it just becomes easy to understand. Okay, so just go through it. It's melted at a particular temperature. All those details are there. But what is more important is to understand why is it so important, that the process is easy and it does not need new investment, and it reduces the amount of bitumen that you will use. It improves the road strength. This is very important. Okay, and less wear and tear. A plastic road made from plastic waste actually has less wear and tear as compared to a normal road. It's more eco-friendly, right? It reduces road fatigue, it increases its strength, and there is better resistance to weather elements like rain and cold weather. And the larger significance is that it reduces the amount of plastic which is there in the society. So this is as far as reduce, reuse and recycle of waste is concerned. I hope this part is clear. Please go through the notes, especially on how to make a road from plastic, the technical details, so that you can read it and understand and being able to process it well. Hats off to Professor Vasudevan. Thank you very much for